Hi, this is Congressman Tom Cole. This is another one of our Congressional Weekly Chats. It's been a very busy and surprisingly productive week in Congress. Let's talk with the most important thing, which is the passage of the National Defense Authorization Act. That's the bill that actually takes care of what we authorize to do in defense every year. It's passed on a bipartisan basis for 63 straight years. That's a big deal. Most of the time, other issues don't pass. Congress actually does come together on this bill. It'll change a little bit going forward as the Senate does its version. We sit down, but the point is it's going to get done, and that authorizes things. But in the world of Congress, authorizing something doesn't matter until you appropriate the money. And those are two different processes, which most people don't understand. This week, the Appropriations Committee, which I'm very pleased to chair, actually dealt with 5 major pieces of legislation, the most important of which was the Defense Appropriations Bill. So we actually put the money behind the authorization bill that passed. And we did other major pieces of legislation as well. Homeland Security probably being the most important of those. We had a general government appropriations bill, a legislative branch appropriations bill. The important thing to know is Congress is actually doing its work. It's moving bills through the subcommittees and then full committee of appropriations. We have 12 bills that actually fund the day-to-day operation of the government. They don't do Social Security or Medicare or Medicaid, but they do things like defense, transportation, education, health and human services. Those bills are moving quite well. Again, half of them are done, even though we got a very late start because last year's bills didn't get passed until March. We've gotten 6 of them done. Of the 12, our commitment is to get the other 6 done before Congress goes on its August break. So again, these are really big things. The Defense Authorization Act, which again passed for the 63rd straight year or 64th. Point is, Congress doing its work. We're waiting for the Senate to do the same thing. They've not done that yet. And then getting 5 bills out in the last couple of days of appropriations, 6 overall, the 12, so we're halfway done, and we're on schedule to finish the other half. Couldn't be prouder about that. Now let me conclude by mentioning a personal issue, but it's historically significant to Oklahoma. There's been a lot of checkered history of what are called Indian boarding schools. Beginning in the 19th century, the United States government created a system of schools to educate Indian children. That sounds on the surface as like a good thing, and in some cases it was. But in many cases, when Indian children were sent to these schools, they were told they couldn't speak their language, they had to cut their hair, they could not dress as Indians, they had to lose their culture. And there were over 500 of these schools in the country. And frankly, 1 in 5 of them roughly were in the state of Oklahoma. We had more of these schools than any place else. And the history is a dark and difficult history in some ways because it was policy to strip Native children of their culture, their history, and their heritage. Those of you that happen to watch the very popular series Yellowstone have seen a lot of what this meant to individual tribal governments. A number of years ago, several of my colleagues and I worked together to create a commission to look at this practice, to educate Americans about what happened, and to make sure it doesn't ever happen again. Also to account for the many children that honestly went to these schools and died and were buried, and their graves are no longer marked. We didn't know how many we lost. We didn't know anything about it, and they shouldn't be forgotten. So I was extraordinarily proud. I worked with my friend Sharice Davids. Sharice and I co-chair the Native American Caucus. I'm very proud Chickasaw. She's a very proud Ho-Chunk Indian. She's from Kansas. I'm from Oklahoma. She's a progressive Democrat. I'm a conservative Republican. On this thing, we're united. This is something we need to understand in our own history. And we need to not forget the generations of children that went through this and how difficult it was for their tribe. So again, this has been a very bipartisan bill. It's not a Republican or Democratic bill. This is an American bill where we're coming to grips with our own history and learning about it. And the Education and Workforce Committee, which has jurisdiction in this area, actually marked up the bill this week and passed it out. So that's a great thing. And I can't thank my colleagues on both sides of the aisle, Republican, Democrat, conservative, and liberal alike. Again, this is not a partisan issue. This is not an ideological issue. This is just helping us understand our past and making sure we don't forget some of the things in it that if we got to do over today, we'd probably do very differently. So I think it's a good bill. I think it's serving an important function. It's allowed a lot of families to tell us a lot of stories, a lot of tribes to tell us a lot of their travails, and provides us with a mechanism to heal, to say, you know, we're not that country anymore that allowed that to happen to Native American tribes and Native American children, just like we're not the country anymore that allowed racism in the 19th century. I am so proud of our country and the progress it's made. Again, anybody that thinks America's somehow stuck in the past doesn't know America very well. Our people have come together over its history. We really are e pluribus unum, and that is one out of many. We have many different traditions, many different histories, but I don't know any American that's not proud of our country, that's not proud of our people, and is not determined to continue to build on the legacy all of us inherited from the revolution on. This is a great country, and when it's made mistakes, unlike other countries, it's been willing to look at those mistakes, examine them, and learn from them and get better. And that's what this is about. It's a small piece of this mosaic, but it's about learning about our history and giving folks that historically were not treated as well as they should have been an opportunity to tell their story, educate other Americans, so we make sure we don't do something like this again. And I'm confident that we won't. So big week for the country, getting the National Defense Authorization Bill done. That's always a major achievement. Major week in Congress for moving 5 appropriations bills through the committee. That's over half of funding because it included the defense appropriations bill, and half of what Congress spends directly through the appropriations committee is defense. We got veterans done last week, not only through the committee but across the floor. Nothing more important than looking after our veterans and honoring our commitment to them. So real progress. And finally for me, and I think for the country, just a little vignette, a personally important thing, so that we, again, remember our history, particularly our history in Oklahoma, where we were more involved in this than most other states, and learn from it and grow from it and build relationships across ethnic, racial lines. I mean, again, I'm very proud of my state. I think we've led the way in terms of remembering our history and finding common ground with one another. That's what the bill was about. I'm proud Congress acted on it. With that, I look forward to chatting with you either next week or the week after. Congress will actually not be in session next week. I'll be in the district working it pretty hard, so look forward to talking to those of you there. But in the meantime, good luck. God bless your families, and hope all things are well. But you can know, at least for this week, Congress had a pretty good week.